This is more than just a podcast. It's a moment to stop, to breathe, to notice how you've been showing up. We were taught to push through, to stay strong, to hold it all together even when it cost us connection. But fatherhood was never meant to be survival. Here, we slow down before we raise our voice. We regulate before we correct. We learn that presence does more than pressure ever could. Because when a father changes how he shows up, the entire home shifts. Children feel safe instead of tense, partners feel supported instead of alone, and calm replaces chaos. Brothers, this is where awareness becomes action, where healing becomes leadership, where strength is measured by steadiness, not control. This is 15 Minutes with Dad, and this is the work, this is the responsibility, and this is how we change generations. Welcome back to 15 Minutes with Dad. This is episode 5 of the Fatherhood While Healing series. In episode 1, we talked about what happens when the family changes. Episode 2, we talked about co-parenting when you are still hurt. Episode 3, we talked about the fatherhood identity crisis. In episode 4, we talked about missing moments and the pain of not seeing your children every day. And today, we're going to talk about that reset, the co-parenting reset. Because one of the hardest things after separation is accepting this truth. The romantic relationship ended, but the parenting relationship still exists. And that is where a lot of conflict begins. Because many parents keep trying to co-parent through the emotional residue of the old relationship, with old arguments, old disappointments, old wounds, old power struggles, old patterns, and old expectations. But a new family structure needs a new communication system. You cannot build healthy co-parenting with the same patterns that helped break the relationship. That is why this episode matters. Because at some point, you have to stop asking, why did this happen? And start asking, what does our child need from us now? That shift is the reset. Let's talk about it. The old relationship cannot lead the new parenting relationship. After separation, many parents struggle because they are still emotionally relating to each other as former partners. Not co-parents, former partners. That means every text still carries history. Every disagreement still touches old pain. Every scheduled conversation becomes a reminder of what did not work and why. Every tone begins to feel loaded. Every delay feels disrespectful and every boundary feels personal. And before you know it, the parenting conversations become another relationship argument. But your child does not need you to win the old relationship. Your child needs you to build a new parenting structure. And that structure does not require friendship. It does not require emotional closeness. It does not even require pretending nothing happened. It requires maturity. It requires clarity, boundaries. It requires communication that centers the child. That is the reset. The old relationship had emotional expectations. The new relationship needs operational expectations, like who handles what? How do we communicate? What decisions need agreement? What is the schedule? How do you transition work? How do we handle school, health, discipline, activities, holidays, and emergencies? This is not being cold. This is your responsibility. Structure lowers conflict. Clarity lowers confusion. Boundaries lower emotional chaos. And why the reset feels so hard. The reset feels hard because it asks you to grieve one relationship while building another. It's like building an airplane while flying it, is a good analogy. That is not easy. Like you are letting go of the couple identity, but still sharing parenting decisions. You are no longer building a romantic life together, but you are still tied through your child's life. That creates emotional tension. And if there was betrayal, disappointment, neglect, emotional distance, control, avoidance, or unresolved conflict, the reset feels even harder. It can be even toxic. It can be like an extension of what your relationship once was. But now you have no ties to each other, but all the stress and the drama is still going on. And it's because part of you may still want validation. You may still want an apology. You may still want the other person to understand what did they do to you and how they hurt you. You may want fairness. You may still want your side of the story to be heard, and that is human. But I'll tell you something that is a hard truth. Co-parenting cannot depend on emotional closure. Sometimes closure does not come before the responsibility. Sometimes you have to act mature before the pain inside you feels resolved. Sometimes you have to choose your child's peace while your heart still wants justice. That isn't weakness. That is just being a leader, showing leadership. So child-centered co-parenting builds safety. And there's a supportive stance on this. So children tend to do better when parents create stable, low conflict, emotional, safe environments after separation. And that's not that parents have to agree on everything. It doesn't mean that parents never feel hurt. It doesn't mean that everything becomes smooth overnight. It means the child is no longer placed in the middle of the adult pain. And that matters for this episode because the reset is not a theory. It is survival for the family system. A child should not feel like they are carrying messages between adults. They shouldn't feel guilty for loving both homes, and they shouldn't feel responsible for keeping peace. They shouldn't feel like one parent's pain requires their loyalty, which tends to happen immediately after relationships end. And depending on how toxic it was, or if there was any of this, betrayal or infidelity and things like that, it becomes real. The parent that was hurt, and you look at the child that maybe staying with that parent, they see their parent hurt and they look at the other parent like, you hurt me too. And so it puts kids in the means of like feeling like they have to show their loyalty to the pain of the parent that was hurt. And when parents create a child-centered system, the child gets to stay a child, and that is the goal, my friend. Now let's address the counter-argument. Some fathers they're thinking, we could not communicate when we were together. Why would co-parenting be any different? And honestly, that's a fair question. Because if the relationship had constant conflict, poor communication, distrust, or emotional shutdown, co-parenting may feel like stepping back into the same fire. But here's the difference. The goal has changed. You are no longer trying to save the romantic relationship. You're trying to stabilize the parenting relationship. And that means the rules have changed. You do not have to process every emotion together. You do not have to revisit every old wound. You don't even have to convince them to see you differently. You don't have to keep proving your worth. You just have to communicate around the child's need. That is it. That is the reset. You have nothing to prove when it comes to your worth. You only communicate around the child's need. Less emotional debate, more child-centered clarity. There's less defending the past and more building the structure. There's less trying to be understood as a former partner and more about staying steady as a father. That shift changes the work. So here's a blind spot many fathers struggle with. Sometimes we say we want peace, but we are still trying to be seen by the co-parent, seen as a good man, seen as a better parent, seen as the one who really tried and did their best. We want to be seen as the one who was hurt, seen as the one who was misunderstood. And that need to be seen can keep us stuck in conflict because every message becomes a courtroom. Every disagreement becomes the evidence, and every parenting decision becomes a chance to prove something. But fatherhood after separation requires a different question, a deeper question. Do I need to be seen by my co-parents, or do I need to be steady for my child? And that question is not easy, because being misunderstood does hurt, especially when you feel like your intentions were good. But the co-parenting reset requires emotional discipline. You may not get the validation you want. You may not get the apology you deserve. You may not even get the fairness you imagine, but your child still deserves a father who leads from values, structure, not from the need to be vindicated. Now, the reset looks practical, but it's not only emotional. It sounds like this. Now, let's keep this conversation focused on the schedule. Okay, I hear your concern, but here's what I understand our child needs. Oh, I am not available for arguing. I am available for planning, though. Like, let's put the details in writing so we are clear. Or I want to transition. I want this transition to feel calm for our child. Here's what we can do. Or I disagree, but I want to keep the focus on what helps them. Now, that isn't passive. It's not soft. It's just emotional leadership. It means you also stop sending paragraphs on paragraphs on paragraphs when a short message works. You stop trying to win tone battles. You stop using sarcasm. You stop bringing up unrelated wounds. You stop replying while activated or triggered. You stop turning logistics into emotional court cases. And you start building a system, because systems protect peace when emotions run high. So here's a simple framework fathers can use. You want to define the relationship clearly. This is no longer a romantic relationship. It is a parenting relationship. That means the center is the child, not your past, not the breakup, not the unresolved pain, the child. Number 2, separate emotion from the logistics. Your emotions matter, but every logistics conversation does not need to become an emotional conversation. Focus on schedule, school, health, activity, needs, emergencies. Keep the lane clear and very simplified. You can create communication rules. Decide what works best for you. Text, email, parenting app, scheduled calls, writing agreements. The more conflict, the more structure helps. Number 4, keep adults' pain away from the child. Away from the child. No venting through the child. No emotional recruiting. No side taking. No guilt. No making the child responsible for adult feelings. Number 5, regulate your responding. A calm response is not the same as agreement. You can disagree without escalating. There's ways to set boundaries without attacking, and you can respond later when your nervous system is steady. You don't have to respond right away just because the message came to you right away. Take a moment, take a breather, and then come back to it. Number 6 is repair when you miss it. You will not do this perfectly. When you react, repair. Own your part. Return to the child-centered goal. Growth happens through repair. Now, I want to give fathers some language. Like when the conversation starts becoming emotional, we can use things like, I want to stay focused on what our child needs right now. When you feel triggered. Or I need time to think before I respond. Just give me a moment. When the schedules change, hey, thanks for letting me know. Let's confirm the updated plan. And when you disagree, well, I see it differently. I still want us to make the decisions around what gives our child stability. And when the other parent brings up the past, look, I hear this still matters. I do not want to argue through text. For now, I want to stay focused on the parenting issue. Or when you need a boundary in place. Hey, I'm willing to discuss parenting needs. I'm not willing to continue if the conversation becomes disrespectful. Or when your child is struggling, let's both stay consistent so they do not feel caught between us. These scripts matter because stress steals language. When you are triggered, you need words ready. And that is part of leadership. And those are your words. You can replay this as many times as you want. The co-parenting reset looks different depending on your child's age. Toddlers will need a calm transition. They need familiar routines. They need parents who do not make handoffs tense. Your tone matters more than your explanation. Your children is going to need reassurance. They need simple language. They need to hear this is not your fault. You are loved in both homes and you do not have to choose. Preteens, they require consistency. They notice patterns. They notice hypocrisy. They notice emotional shifts. They need parents who do not pull them into an adult frustration. Teens need respect and honesty. They may ask very hard questions. They may have opinions. They may feel angry, but they need room to feel without becoming your emotional partner. Adolescents need strong boundaries with emotional safety. They need to know both homes are allowed to be different, but not chaotic. At every stage, the reset protects one thing: the child's right to love both parents without pressure. The reset becomes even more important when new partners enter the picture. And this is where many families struggle, because now the child is navigating more change. New adults, possibly new rules, maybe a new home, even new siblings, new emotions, new loyalty conflicts. And sometimes parents rush the process because they want their new life to feel normal again. So they bring in the person to fill in the role of who they wanted to love. But children need time, and trust takes time. Blended families need patience. So do not force your child to feel what they do not feel yet. Do not demand instant closeness. Do not compare homes. You don't want to let a new relationship erase the child's need for steady connection with you. And do not use a new partner to prove you've moved on. Because goodness, that is very rampant out there. Your child needs emotional clarity. They need to know you are not being replaced. My love for you has not changed. This new structure will take time, and you are allowed to have feelings. And that is emotional safety. I've done this wrong a couple times in my life. And I felt like I lost my child for a huge part, and she was going through depression, and we transitioned. A lot of changes happened pretty quickly. And over time of seeing her behavior, and I'm like, who is this child? And it turns out she had a whole experience in the same household that I do not. And it was because I'm getting close to my ex's kids and my exes, and getting close to my kid. And so she felt slighted. And she also was sharing me with a little kid and 2 other big kids. So not only is she having to learn a new partner, but she had to kind of adjust and learn to love on more than just myself, while also sharing me majorly for the first time ever in her life. And this wasn't on the back of a separation. This was some time, but still, the fact still remain is that I transitioned even after being out of a relationship for a long time, and it still caused damage. So imagine what happens when you finish a relationship and you jump right into another relationship within the first year or so, and you haven't really helped your kids digest it. Maybe they need some therapy to process the separation. Maybe they need to talk to somebody that's outside of you, or, to really process what's going on and all the changes in their life. Now let's talk about the aligned father and how the reset plays into this framework. The aligned father understands the reset is not about control. It is about clarity. He stops trying to win the old fight. He stops proving himself through conflict. He stops making the child carry adult pain. He stops confusing bitterness with boundaries, and he starts to lead his home. A aligned father regulates before responding. They start building predictable rhythms. They start communicating with purpose, letting the child love freely, and he starts becoming the kind of father whose presence feels safe even during transitions. And that is the work, not perfection. It's just alignment. And alignment sounds like something very simple, like, look, I'm hurt, but I will not parent from this hurt. Well, I'm disappointed, but I would not make my child carry those disappointments. Or I am rebuilding, and I know that, but I still need to be consistent. Or I am no longer in the relationship, but I'm still responsible for how I show up to my kids. And that is fatherhood while healing. If there's one thing I want every father to take from this episode today, it's this. The old relationship has ended, but your child still needs a healthy parenting relationship between the adults raising them. That does not mean friendship. It means structure, boundaries, emotional maturity. It means keeping children out of adult pain. It means choosing peace without pretending the pain was not real. The co-parenting reset begins when you stop trying to repair the old relationship through parenting conversations and start rebuilding a new structure around the child's needs. Now, it's not easy, but it is necessary because your child deserves more than two homes. They deserve emotional safety between both homes. So in the next episode, we are talking about the healing father, breaking cycles before they reach your children. Until then, stay grounded, communicate with purpose, keep the child at the center, and keep becoming. Before you move on, let's pause here, because growth doesn't happen in the listening. It happens in what you choose next. So you don't need to change everything. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. Stay present long enough to practice something different. So carry this into your home, into those small moments, the hard conversations, and the quiet decisions no one applauds. That's where fatherhood is built. And if something here resonated, let it become action. Let it become consistency, or become the way that you lead. Because this is how trust is formed. This is how safety is felt, and this is how generational change actually happens. And if this episode helps you, share it with another father who's trying to do better. And if you have a story, a win, or a lesson you're learning, email me at Lirec, Lirec, at 15minuteswithdad.com. That's Lirec at 15minuteswithdad.com. Because this work grows through shared experiences.